Hello and welcome to a live Kerfefe break on Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. If you are just joining us, this is a live show. Usually starts at 12 Central Time on Monday and Friday. We just talk about what's in the news, what's on our minds. Sometimes we have guests. Today we're starting a little late because I had to get a shower, but also really because we just did our first Deprogrammed short. And if you haven't watched it yet, I'm really excited because we want to do more comedy or try to have fun, frivolity, and just be silly. And this short was, well, making it was so much fun. We laughed way too much. I think we could put together a blooper reel that's 30 minutes long. But I got to make it with comedian Peter Feliciano. And the concept was by my friend, Mystery Chris, who is our Wednesday night co-host here. And then my husband shot it, did all the editing and the audio and the music, which was a grueling task because we had messed up with the sound. So please give it up for my husband, Anthony Garcia Music, in the chat. And yeah, if you liked it, if you are a regular here and you liked it and you thought it was funny, please share it because it's something new and we'd like to get it out there. And if you didn't like it, feel free to leave a comment saying you didn't like it because that'll help us with the algorithm anyway. So that's fine. Anyway, welcome. Hello, friends. I see some familiar faces in the chat. Hello, Robert. And hello, Pirate's here too. Give it up for Pirate, our moderator today. So today, before we get started, I did have one announcement. Still, just a reminder, April 15th, if you are in the Austin, Texas area, or if you don't mind traveling, there's going to be a big conference / music and comedy get together April 15th at the Vulcan Theater in Austin. It's the Minds Fest. The last one they did, I got to go to, it was in New York. And this one's going to be just as amazing. They have a great lineup of speakers, including Peter Boghossian, Daryl Davis, Jack Posobiec, Tim Cass, Luke Radowski. Trying to think who else. A couple of people from the Tim Cass show, Ian. So in addition to the speakers, they've got musical performances. They have comedians like Jamie Kilstein, and I'm going to be hosting. So if you're around and want to come hang out with a bunch of wrong thinkers, I would encourage you to get tickets, and you can get more info at minds.com. Dom, yay! Dom says, I just bought my ticket. Awesome. I'm so excited you're coming. There's going to be a lot of people coming from out of town and getting to meet each other in person for the first time. Although I've met you before. Let's see. Oh, Adam says, good bossa nova, Anthony. Yeah, so the music I mentioned for the comedy short today, Anthony did. I don't know if you noticed. I didn't notice at first. But the bossa nova song he did it's actually the pop culture theme song that he made. He just turned it into a bossa nova version. That's really funny. But thank you for that. Okay, so today, I just want to hang out with you guys and have a bit of fun. I've got a funny article that I wanted to just put up at the end. But let's start with the thing that everybody seems to be debating on Twitter. I've been off Twitter a lot recently, which has been great. But when I got on there today, I saw everyone's talking about this clip. So we'll just put it up. CPAC, which is a big conservative conference that happens. I don't know if it's annually or I think it happens more than once a year. Anyway, Michael Knowles gave a speech, and we're going to play this clip because this is one everybody has a problem with. And I don't know, I have mixed thoughts about it. I'm curious to see what you guys think about this. But this is his point of view about transgenderism. Here we go.
There can be no middle way in dealing with transgenderism. It is all or nothing. If transgenderism is true, if men really can become women, then it's true for everybody of all ages. If transgenderism is false, as it is, if men really can't become women, as they cannot, then it's false for everybody too. And if it's false, then we should not indulge it, especially since that indulgence requires taking away the rights and customs of so many people. If it is false, then for the good of society, and especially for the good of the poor people who have fallen prey to this confusion, transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely. The whole preposterous ideology at every level. There can be...
Okay, so this is the clip everyone's up in arms about. There was a Rolling Stone headline that came out that they since changed. The title, the original title said something to the effect of Michael Knowles says we have to eradicate transgender people, which is not what he said. He said transgenderism, the ideology. He even clarified at the end there, ideology. So Rolling Stones was forced to change their headline, I guess, or maybe potentially get sued. But there's been a lot of discussion about this online. There have been a lot of people on the left saying, of course, you know, what that headline said, oh, he's talking about eradicating trans people and getting, you know, killing trans people. First of all, I think that's an absolute falsehood. And I think it's interesting because a lot of these woke people who are saying that eradicating transgenderism, the ideology, is the same as saying you want to kill trans people. They're the very same people who often online they post things about how they want to abolish whiteness, how they want to eradicate whiteness. And if you ask them, well, what does that mean? Does that mean like get rid of white people? Like, does that mean genociding white people? They'll say, no, whiteness is an ideology, and it's, you know, it's a system of oppression, it's a system of being, and that's what we're talking about. So how do you have both there, where you're saying abolishing whiteness is a-okay? I'm just going to show you something real quick. Look at this. If you do a search for headlines, or for even if you do a search on Twitter for the phrase abolish whiteness, you will find articles. Look at this. Harvard Magazine, abolish the white race. London Review Books, abolish whiteness. Here we go. Viewpoint Magazine, Beyond Guilt and Privilege, abolishing the white race. Verso Books, Towards the Abolition of Whiteness. Indiana University, abolishing whiteness. The Guardian, abolish whiteness. Academic, calls for Cambridge support. Here they have something, LA Times, about a scholar who called for abolishing whiteness. Educator slammed for suggesting to abolish whiteness. Here's a book on Amazon, Towards the Abolition of Whiteness, Essays on Race and Politics and Working Class History. So, you know, anti-racism and the abolition of whiteness. This is a very common phrase in the woke left. And if this is just a quick Google search, you can do it on any, you can do it on DuckDuckGo or anything. You'll find even more articles, because I'm sure Google likes to suppress some of them. But it's sort of a mainstream thing among the woke, this idea of abolishing whiteness. And you can find people talking about it on Twitter all the time. I haven't done a search yet, but for what I'm about to, the prediction I'm about to make, but I predict that a lot of the people who are currently saying, oh, Michael Knowles definitely meant to, you know, he was talking about trans people, eradicating trans people. I bet a lot of those people have tweets in their history where they're pushing the idea of abolishing and eradicating whiteness, and they would say they don't mean killing white people. So that's just the first point. That the major point is, I think saying he was talking about getting rid of trans people is a complete fallacy, and I wouldn't entertain that argument. Beyond that, I kind of think about it this way. If you compare, let's just take the whiteness thing. Let's compare and contrast those two things. Being white is an immutable characteristic. It's something you can't change. You're born a particular race, just like your biological sex. It's immutable. And so to say to eradicate whiteness, I think there's actually, that's a lot more iffy in terms of pretending like you don't mean getting rid of white people, because what does that mean? And if you press them on it, they say, well, it means all the things we've associated with whiteness, and then they put this whole list of things that are basically Western values, like individualism, hard work, meritocracy, the nuclear family, being on time, things like that. They say that's whiteness, which is racist towards anyone who's not white, to say that they don't value hard work, individualism, having a strong nuclear family. Like that's completely offensive to anyone who's of color, first of all. But I think that abolishing whiteness because you're talking about something that's an immutable characteristic, it's not an ideology. That's BS. It's not, none of those things that they say are about whiteness are about whiteness. Those are Western values. They're not tied to a specific race. So when they say that, I think they are very close to talking about how they want to see fewer white people in society. Much closer to it than where Michael would be towards saying he doesn't want any trans people around. What I took Michael Knowles to be saying is the ideology of transgenderism has infected all levels of society, and that needs to be eradicated. He specifically used the word ideology. Transgenderism, I would argue, is not something that's innate, because unlike whiteness, transgenderism is a mental disorder. Gender dysphoria is a mental disorder. Believing that you were somehow born in the wrong body, having discomfort with your physical body and your sex, and wanting to change that, and not being able to address that in therapy in any other way, like that's a mental health problem. There's no moral judgment attached to saying that. It is a mental health problem. Anorexia is a mental health problem. It doesn't mean you have to attach a moral judgment to it, somebody who's suffering from that. So when he says he wants to get rid of this ideology, I think what he's talking about is the belief system that has built up, the woke belief system that's built up, that's pushing the idea in mainstream society, in kindergarten classes, in elementary schools, in churches, even some churches. They're pushing the idea that this mental health issue, this disorder, is not a disorder, that it's somehow normal, and that all children, all people need to figure out if they have it or not, if they are trans or not, and that it's an identity thing. We've seen this push in the last 10 years where they've used the desire of people to want to combat transphobia, to combat any kind of prejudice or bigotry towards people who choose to live and try and present as the opposite sex. They've used that good-heartedness and that goodwill that people have to say, like, yeah, that shouldn't. So what if this person chooses to live that way? You shouldn't be bigoted towards them or treat them in an ill manner. They've taken that and they've said, okay, if we don't want to bully them and we don't want to be prejudiced, then we also need to teach that this is totally normal and that kids need to pick if they are and if they're not. No, that's not true. Those are two very different things. And so, just my opinion, what I took him to be saying is that we need to eradicate this ideology from public spaces. We need to take it out of the schools, for sure. We need to take it out of women's sports. We need to quit coddling this idea that it's possible to actually change your biological sex. It's not. There's a difference between saying this person is choosing to live and present as the opposite sex, and I have respect for them or love for them, or I just want to be civil towards them, and so I'm not going to treat them in a poor manner. There's a difference between saying that and saying, and I'm going to pretend that they actually have changed their sex. That's something totally different. And a lot of people don't want to participate in that lie. So that's what I think he's addressing. I'm curious to see what you guys think in the chat, because I still have a lot of mixed thoughts about it. But Waffle, thank you for the super chat. 30. Oh, I always forget what this is. Is it shekels? I think it's shekels. Waffle for 30 shekels says, I agree with Michael, but we should be careful not to push the pendulum too far back in the fight versus woke, or risking inquisition persecution like in the dark times when LGBT were hated and prosecuted. Yeah, I completely agree. And a lot of the trans friends and acquaintances that I've had on Deprogrammed have said the same thing, and people who are not trans have said the same thing. Like I'm afraid about how far things have gotten with pushing the ideology of transgenderism, which it's mostly people who are not trans who are pushing it anyway. I'm a little afraid at how far they've gotten, that there is going to be some kind of backlash where people do fall back into unkindness and bigotry and prejudice towards people who are gay or towards people who have gender dysphoria. And so that's one of the reasons I oppose, one of the many reasons I oppose this ideology in the first place, is it's going to cause a backlash. Thank you, Waffle. Let's see. Alan Scott, new member of the channel. Thank you for supporting Deprogrammed. Thanks for hanging out. And let's see what else people think. I don't have a guest today, so I'm going to be talking to you guys. Socrates says, Twitter really has destroyed discourse. Everyone speaks in hyperbole. I think that's largely true. Yes, you will find a lot of just crazy sophistry and a lot of people engaging in fallacy and ad hominems and stuff like that on Twitter. On the other hand, I will say Twitter has helped me to meet a lot of people who I've ended up meeting in real life, and we've had great conversations. And even weirdly enough, sometimes I've had good conversations with woke people on Twitter, surprisingly so, if you can get past that initial knee-jerk reaction towards one another and actually start talking. I've had a few. Maybe I could count them on one hand, but I've had a few. Hologran says, guest, the chat. Yes. Night Train, a little afraid. It's become so insane, it's scary. I don't feel afraid for the kids in my family, but for all the kids growing up today. Same. I think it must be terrifying to have kids right now in some ways, and put them out into the world, especially if you still have them in a public school and haven't figured out how to get them out of there yet. Okay. I've got another thing I'm going to pull up that's related to this Michael Knowles clip. I saw James Lindsay share this morning. It's from one of my favorite accounts on Twitter, Woke Preacher Clips. I love this channel, or this account, Woke Preacher Clips, because they keep tabs on all of these, what would I call them? Wolves in shepherd's clothing. They keep tabs on all of these people who are from the Christian pulpit, masking their true religion, which is woke fundamentalism, masking it and trying to wrap it up in Christ and wrap it up in the Bible. And I can't think of anyone I can't think of anyone I have more anger is maybe a good word. Sometimes I hate these people, because what they're doing is they're leading you astray. And I would much rather, I don't know, I don't get as riled up when I see a secular woke person pushing this BS, but when somebody's pushing it from the pulpit, it makes me think of the Bible verse about Jesus saying, it would be better for these people to have a millstone tied around their ankle and be thrown into the sea than for them to lead one of these little ones astray. And this is the kind of person I think he's talking about, which is someone who claims to be leading you towards Christ, but is preaching a different doctrine, an entirely contradictory doctrine, and wrapping it up in the Bible. And I think it's despicable. So anyway, this account, Woke Preacher Clips, keeps track of these people. And so here they say, I figured that Michael Knowles' CPAC speech would spark some outrageous outrage in certain pulpits. The Presbyterian Church in Austin, Texas did not disappoint. So this is Austin, which is, I'm very close to Austin, lived there for a while. Austin is full of woke churches, that claim to be Christian. So let's hear what this guy has to say.
If you want to see pulsating evil, hatred, judgment, if you want to see an assault on the gospel message of Jesus Christ, listen to the Christians at CPAC, who would not have anything to say if they did not have scapegoats. Again, the message of Jesus, I'm not making this up. The message of Jesus is not judge or you'll be judged. It's stop judging and you won't be judged. Like that's the new deal. Listen to this voice from CPAC. There can be no middle way in dealing with transgenderism. It can be all or nothing. Then a little bit later, he says, and if it's false, that doesn't really exist in biology, then we should not indulge it, especially when that indulgence requires taking away the rights and customs of many people. Not just rights, but customs. You can lose your constitutional rights. So these Christians, in air quotes, don't have to change their customs. And then finally it says, transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely. The whole preposterous ideology at every level. Your LGBTQ neighbors are not an ideology. They're not ideas. They're not an opinion. And it's a lie to say that Christians have a right to oppress other people. And then that's just an opinion. Laws are not opinions. Oppression is not an opinion. No one has a right to oppress another human being.
Crap, I was muted. Thank you guys. Boomer. I know. Sorry. I was just saying this guy, I was getting all ragey. This guy just, he burns me up. It burns me up. It is not oppression to say that your children, that government schools should not be indoctrinating toddlers and elementary school kids and high school kids with an ideology. It is an ideology that says it's totally normal to feel like there's something wrong with your body and your biological sex. And it's totally normal to want to cut your breasts off or be castrated or take cross-sex hormones. And that's totally normal. And you, as a kindergartner, should figure out if you are trans or not. That's not oppression to say, I don't want schools teaching my kindergartner that. That's not oppression. Government schools have no right to push that ideology on your children. A lot of the people who push this belief system in the schools, it's weird because I know a lot of them, not all, but a lot of them are secular. And they would be the first to say religion doesn't belong in the school. A government school can't teach my kindergartner that the best way to view the world is through a Christian lens, the Christian perspective. But they want to say the government school has the right to teach everything, to teach kindergartners to view the world through this woke perspective, through this woke lens. So that person in the video, John Thomas, he says, who was that? That was a pastor at a Presbyterian church in Austin. And I believe a wolf in shepherd's clothing who leads people astray. Socrates, thank you for the super chat, $5 super chat. In your opinion, at what point should you leave a church that's going woke and nearing hearsay? Example, taking gender out of the Adam and Eve story. Taking gender out of the Adam and Eve story? I'm not exactly sure what you mean there, but I'm laughing already because I have heard a few woke sermons about Adam and Eve. I can just imagine. Here's my opinion on it. You and others will differ, but for me, I couldn't be in a woke church. It's not my job to try and pull that church out of wokeness. I know some people who have stayed in churches that are starting to go woke because they want to present an alternate opinion and try and prevent that church from going off the rails. I don't think, for me, as a pretty new Christian, I can't do that anyway, and I need to be around strong Christian leaders, and I need to be in a church environment that is awake and is plugged into the gospel and is shepherding me and correcting me when I'm wrong. And so I need to be in a nurturing environment and an environment that's helping me grow when it comes to church. So I couldn't be in a woke church. And there was a church I was attending briefly that I've since heard has gotten a little woke in some ways. And yeah, I don't think I could have stayed there if that were happening while I was there. Just because I need a real shepherd. That's me. So my opinion is, don't feel guilty. It's not your job to save a church. If it's going off the rails, find some good, strong Christian leaders, or start a new church and surround yourself with people who are really in the Word. Therese says woke is not Christian. I agree. There's a great essay. I've linked to it several times, and I've had him on the show before. I want to have him again soon. But there's a great essay by my friend Samuel Say, and it's called it's something to the effect of woke is antithetical to the gospel. If you look up slow to write, that's his blog. It's one of his most popular blogs ever, and I think he just lays it out really in a really great, succinct way, all the different ways in which woke is completely opposite of Christianity. So I would recommend going and reading that. Let's see. Good morning, Keri. Where do we find your comedy video? Oh, hi, Jean. It's on the channel. We premiered it. We put it out at noon right before this show started. It's called Woke Therapy. I hope you'll go and watch it. And we pinned a link to it at the top of the chat here today. So you can go and take a look at it. Let's see. Thank you for the super chat, Socrates. Dom says, I think they push this ideology to eventually cause a hateful event. They want a trans January 6th. Don't give it to them. I agree. I don't know if you read James Lindsay, Dom, but he talks about this often. He calls it drag Floyd. He says they're trying to provoke a drag Floyd so they can have crackdowns and riots and what have you. I think he might be right. And Pirate says the word I was looking for was disdain. Yes, that's the word. I have disdain for woke preachers, Christian preachers. Lindsay, the cynical geek, a close friend's child has been so warped by this disturbing ideology they're pushing in school. It made my friend's kid suicidal. The rage I feel is an understatement. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have much to add to that other than this is an anecdote about your friend, but the statistics show that there's been an increase in depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation in children. Not all of that is related, I think anyway, not all of that's related to the COVID policies. I think some of it's related to maybe both. The two went hand in hand because these kids are locked down from school and they're online more, and they're picking a lot of this stuff up online too. Tumblr, TikTok, all of this stuff. And it doesn't lead to happy outcomes, in my opinion, when you pick it up at that young age. Okay, let's see. I've got a couple more things to talk about today. And this is kind of related, so let's bring this up. It's a similar topic. So I don't know if you know, but Tennessee has become the first state to, I think it's the first state, to ban adult cabaret shows in public spaces. And so what that means is, see, we already have a lot of laws on the books that ban, that prevent you from taking children to see sexually explicit performances, that prevent you from taking children to nightclubs, strip clubs, bars. We have laws in the books that prevent you from giving sexually explicit material to children for a reason. I believe these laws exist for a reason. The past few years, I've been thinking a lot about, a lot of people have told me, oh, since you've left woke, I think you've become more like a libertarian, or maybe you're ANCAP, or maybe you're this. I've been thinking a lot about those things for the past few years, and I don't believe I am. I'm starting to come to the conclusion, like, no, I think we need less government for sure, but I'm not one of these, in my opinion, crazy people who thinks that we can exist just perfectly fine without laws and without government. If you leave humans to our own devices, we will do evil. We will commit evil. Not all of us. I'm saying humankind. There's that famous Alexander Solzhenitsyn quote about how the line dividing good and evil runs down the heart of every man. And all you have to do is look around you and see how many people are happy to choose evil every day and to live in an evil place in their heart. So I believe in a society, a civil society, you need laws to punish people who do things like murder, rape, child sexual abuse, child abuse, obviously theft, all of these things. So we already have laws that make it illegal to take children to see to a strip club or to a bar or to give them sexually explicit material. But what's been happening in the past few years is there's been this explosion of interest in these drag queen brunches and these events that are happening in public spaces where they're bringing in drag queens. Not, I think it started with drag queen story hour where they were in libraries, they were bringing in drag queens to read books to children, and then it just exploded into full-on drag sexualized performances. I'm going to show you a clip of one of those in a second, so you know I'm not exaggerating about it being sexually explicit. But Tennessee has decided to address this. And so here's an article. This is from CNN. Tennessee becomes first state in 2023 to restrict drag performances. Republican Governor Bill Lee signed a bill into law Thursday afternoon that will restrict public drag show performances in Tennessee, making his state the first to do so this year. The state Senate passed the bill earlier Thursday along party lines to limit, quote, adult cabaret performances, end quote, on public property so as to shield them from the view of children, threatening violators with a misdemeanor and repeat offenders with a felony. So I think this is a great step at trying to curb this and trying to curb the popularity of taking kids to these sexual performances, and also at trying to shame people and wake them up. Like, what are you doing? You wouldn't take your child to a strip club that caters to straight people. Why is it okay doing it when you couch it in, well, this is about LGBT equality? Why is it okay when they're drag queens or it's gay related? Like, it's not okay. You're sacrificing your kids on the altar of inclusivity, and you're introducing them to sexual performances and saying that you're doing it because you want to be tolerant and diverse and inclusive. So I think this is a great idea. I'm going to just show you the bill itself and we can read a little bit of it, because a lot of times, as you know, people get their panties in a twist about bills and what they've been told are in the bill without actually reading it and seeing what it's about. And I think you guys may remember the bill in Florida that all of the media and maybe all the leftists in your life were calling the anti-gay bill, or the don't say gay bill. That's what they were calling it. And then if you actually read it, it was like, wait a minute, what do you have a problem with in this bill? Can you point to it? And they couldn't. Okay, so this is Senate Bill 3. Let me make sure this is on the screen. Yeah. Senate Bill 3 in Tennessee. Okay, so here's the language that they're adding. Quote, adult cabaret performance means a performance in a location other than an adult cabaret that features topless dancers, go-go dancers, exotic dancers, strippers, male or female impersonators who provide entertainment that appeals to a prurient interest, or similar entertainers, regardless of whether or not performed for consideration. So then they go on to say this is going to be an offense for a person to engage in an adult cabaret performance on public property or in a location where the adult cabaret performance could be viewed by a person who is not an adult. And you can go on to read, it's very short, it's only 2 pages. I would encourage you, if you hear anyone criticizing this Tennessee bill, do what I usually do, which is, read the bill yourself and then ask them, like, what language do you specifically have a problem with in the bill? 9 times out of 10, or maybe more than 9 times out of 10, I think you'll find they haven't even read it. So first, they can't answer it. But you might provoke them to actually go and read it if you do that, and then have to think about it and figure out what they have a problem with there. Like, exactly what part of don't put a sexual entertainment that's intended for adults in front of kids, what part of that do you have a problem with? Like, point to it. So I think it's a great thing. I think this bill is good. Tennessee and Texas and Florida seem to be leading the way in terms of passing a lot of bills trying to curb the woke infiltration of culture recently. Let's see what you guys are saying. Oh, Karen. Hey, Karen. Alexa became a YouTube member. Thank you so much. Good to see you. Hit the like button. Yeah, somebody says yes. Okay, did I miss anything else? I'm scrolling. When I'm reading, I can't really keep up with the chat. So let's see. Keri's bringing the heavy on this fine Monday. Oh, am I? I'm trying. Somebody says reading a bill. That one's it's not even 2 full pages. It's like a page and a quarter. And you would think they could do their due diligence and at least read something that short, right? Okay. Here's something else. Let's see. So I told you I was going to show you an example of what's going on. Now, somebody asked me when I saw this trending video on Libs of TikTok, and this is not an unusual video. I'm sure if you spend a lot of time on Twitter or TikTok, you've probably seen lots of these as well. I can't even count how many of these I've seen in the past year. These people videoing the sexualized drag performances that are happening at some of these drag brunches. A couple things about this video, and I've noticed this in some of the others that I'm about to pull up, is mostly women there who are bringing their children. It's mostly white women. And I don't see a lot of dads in the picture. I don't know if that's because the dads are not in the picture at all, or if they are not supportive of this or don't choose to be there while this is happening. But it's just something interesting to observe. A lot of white women doing this. Okay, here we go.
Yeah! Yes, auntie! I'm running out of time. I got one night away, one night away. See if you know people, one night away. Deep in your eyes, I touch on you more every time. When you leave, I'm begging.
Okay. So that's the kind of stuff that this bill in Tennessee would prevent, which I think is a great thing. I want to show you something else because I mentioned that I've seen a lot of these. And again, I know if you're on Twitter, you probably have as well. I'm not going to play all of them. They're all really similar. They're from different states. It's much like that one, the mostly white moms bringing their toddlers and elementary school age kids to watch these sexually explicit drag performances. But what we're starting to see at some of these performances also are something like this that I'm about to put up on the screen. And this is where the kids start joining in and twerking and dancing while the adults throw dollar bills at them and hand them dollar bills for dancing suggestively for the adults. It's very disturbing. I don't know why parents, even woke parents, can't see this and kind of like a light bulb go off. Like, wait, what are we teaching the kid by doing this? Dancing for adults and trying to mimic the sexual dance that we've brought them here to see the adults doing. Trying to mimic that will reward them with cash, like a stripper.
All right, we're gonna give you 60 seconds of lip sync.
The little girl running around collecting her dollars. Look at these adults waving their dollars at her. What? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Karen says, I want to cry. All right, Keri, we get it. Stop. I know. I just wanted to see how long it went on. Like how long it went on with them giving her the money and nobody in there think that that's weird. And it starts with her going around and collecting the money, but you can see like adults like waving their dollars, like come over here and dance over here. I know, Dion, I really hate this. When did this become normal? And yeah, Arnauer says this is worse. Well, this is worse than the pageant stuff, isn't it? This is the point I'm about to make. The feminist part of social justice used to criticize sexualization of little girls. Do you remember when we did that? The third wave feminist part? I was part of third wave feminism. We criticized the sexualization of little girls, and we would try and find it even in some places where it didn't exist. But there are other places I do believe it existed, like the pageant stuff. Can you imagine if this were not LGBT related, if this were male strip club related with like female strippers there for male clients, and you brought a little girl into that kind of strip club and you had her do this for all the adult men with their dollars, then would they have a problem with it? I think they would. It's like they can't see what they're doing because the LGBT filter completely clouds their vision and tells them, oh, this is okay. This is about tolerance and equality and teaching my kids about diversity. No, you're sexualizing your child and treating your child like a stripper. How old is that little girl? Maybe 5? Jean Ellis says, yes, they've sexualized their children and are proud of it. Yeah. Yeah. Somebody says childless women. No, that's the thing. A lot of these women are bringing their own children there. It's woke women bringing their own kids there. Anthony says, hopefully a big reason the fathers aren't there is not to be accused of being creeps. What father would ever condone anything like this? They might not be aware of exactly what takes place at these. Yeah, I think it's a mixture of things. Exactly. I think there are fathers who don't really know what their wife is taking their children to. I also think there's a lot of these are maybe queer couples themselves who don't have a man at home. But most of them, I think, this is just my opinion based on what I've observed in some of the Facebook groups for parents of trans kids. Most of them, I think, are probably divorced because a lot of those women in those groups, and there's tens of thousands of women in those groups where they teach them the whole orthodoxy of how to, validate and support your trans kid and push them into medical transition pretty much immediately. And most of those women, when they do speak of their child's father, they are always like ex-husband. So it seems to be a lot of divorced women. This is grooming. Normalization phase, says Surly Unicorn. Yeah, they're normalizing it. So, even being someone who believes in less government, I'm happy to see bills that say, hey, just in case you didn't understand when we said you can't take kids to strip clubs, like we're going to try and make it very clear to you, you can't do it, even if it's under the blanket of LGBT inclusion and diversity. So if we need to have another bill making that very explicit will do it, right? So kudos to Tennessee. Dawn B for $10. Thank you for the super chat, Dawn. Says, and although they know the ordinance of God, that those who practice such things are worthy of death, they not only do them the same, but also give hearty approval to those who practice them. Romans 1:32. That is a very appropriate verse. Thank you very much for sending me that. Thank you. Yeah, Munchie Mom, says Adam, Munchausen by proxy. They love. I think that's the other thing, is you've got a lot of moms here who enjoy the attention and the special status they get by being a mom of a trans kid. And so you have this whole what's the word? This is kind of societal encouragement that's happening for, if your child in any way shows, like if they're gender nonconforming in any way, like if you have a little boy who likes to paint his nails or wants to play with a doll, like maybe he's a girl, and they, boom, a lot of them are excited to go down that path and push their kid down that path. Social credit, vicarious praise. Yes, that's what they get. They get vicarious praise. They make it their whole identity is, being the parent of a special trans kid, which makes it hard for that kid if that kid ever decides, wait a minute, it was a phase, or I was influenced by school or my parents or my peer group, and I'm not actually trans. How hard is it for that kid to then change direction now that their parent has made it their whole identity is that their kid is trans, to say, wait a minute, I'm not. It makes it very hard. Rib Rascal, that's why I hang my hat in Tennessee. That's George Strait, right? I think I get the reference. Great quote. Okay. We're going to do a short one today because I just wanted to hang out with you guys and talk about a couple things in the news, and just to celebrate that we have our first comedy short out, or frivolity short is what we should call it. We've got our first frivolity short out. If you haven't watched it, it's called Woke Therapy. It's on the channel. It just came out this morning because it's something new that we're trying. Mystery Chris and I have a lot of ideas for frivolous, fun videos. And so we want to start doing more of these. And this is the first one. If you like it, if you like Peter Feliciano, the comedian who's in it with me, please share it. Please give a comment on the video. That helps the algorithm immensely. Or hit the like button on the video. That helps us immensely. I really appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to show you something just kind of funny before we take off. So you know how on Wednesday nights, if you're a regular, Mystery Chris likes to play a game sometimes. Well, one of the games we play is there a tattoo of that? But another game that we play is this racist? We need to have a little theme song for that segment, like, is this racist? Where you look it up, you look up things like hiking or I don't know, creamed spinach, anything. You look it up and you put in the word racism and see if there's an article about that thing being racist, and almost always there is. So I just saw this headline today and it kind of cracked me up because we could play the game with this. Equestrians, horseback riding, is it racist? Here we go. This is in the New York Times. The headline, Black equestrians want to be safe, but they can't find helmets. For Black riders with natural hair, finding a helmet that fits can be virtually impossible. Some are trying to raise awareness of the problem, but manufacturers say it's not a simple fix. Okay, I'm not saying this isn't a problem. If you have a huge head of natural locks, I'm sure it is a problem. Is it headline worthy in the New York Times? Is it racism? Is it something to do with racism? No, I would argue it's nothing to do with racism. It's because it's hard to make a helmet that is this gigantic. Like, that is just a matter of physics. like this isn't you know what? It's not like the equestrian helmet makers are like, you know what we should do? Let's not make the big gigantic helmets. Let's screw over the Black equestrians who have natural locks. Let's do that. It's not like some devious plan or oversight to offend Black horseback riders. It's not. I can assure you, this is just a matter of physics. You know what else sucks? Short people like myself can't reach the top shelf. That's not because society is secretly phobic and oppressive towards short people. It's just there are certain privileges that we all have, and there are certain marginalizations, to use one of their words, that we all have. And hey, if you've got a big head of hair of natural locks, it's going to be hard to find a helmet that fits over your hair. Like, yeah, this just cracks me up. Haircuts are also racist, a surly unicorn. Right. Also, they find ways to fit football helmets for big hair. That's true. Why haven't they talked to the football helmet makers? Like, although do those guys have huge locks sometimes, or is it more like the fro? I guess they do have locks. Helmets are bigots, right? I just thought that was silly. Yeah, you could play this game. It's really funny when it shows up in the New York Times. They're like, you know what's racist? Horseback riding helmets. Okay, let's print it, put it in the New York Times. Let's go. Thank you guys for hanging out today. It's been a fun short one today. Oh, see, Highness says, don't tell Epic Mike. Yeah, Epic Mike has a huge head of hair. Although I feel like he could easily put that under a helmet because he doesn't have locks, which is bulkier. That would be harder. Okay, you guys, I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thank you, Pirate, for modding the chat today. He's got a link here to the link tree. You can also go to the pinned comment in the chat to see our first deprogrammed short, Woke Therapy, which is out today. If you like it, please share it. Please tell your friends about it. And if you have criticisms, feel free to put the criticisms in the comments because A, I'd like to read them, and B, it helps the algorithm. So thanks. Bye, you guys. Take care.